Stay home for Labour, isolate in solidarity. Let's get together on Zoom, see into people's bedrooms. We're all voyeurs for free. Stay home for Labour, with Crispin as your MC. Get used to the smell of your fragrant hand gel, hands like an ancient mummy. I said stay home for Labour, wave your toilet rolls in the air real quick. Have a laugh, have a sup, keep your spirits up, 'cause when this is all over, we've got some arses to kick. I said stay home for Labour.
Joke that feeds on ignorance starves an audience. Now, we have the choice. Most comics feed prejudice and fear and blinkered visions, but the best ones, illuminate them, make them clearer to see, easier to deal with. We must make people laugh and until they cry. Yes, cry. Till they find their pain and their beauty. Comedy is medicine, not sugared sweeties to rot your teeth with.
We're going to have a discussion today about comedy because it's been in the news. We've had streaming of Little Britain has been stopped by the BBC, and one episode of Fawlty Towers has been taken off by UK TV, which I've never watched or had the privilege of watching. We're not going to talk about those particular shows as much as the impact that comedy has on us and our culture, and how important it is to us to have good comedy. And what is comedy? I mean, is comedy just about getting laughs, or is it more than that? Now, that clip that we just showed was possibly a bit controversial because it may well be linking Little Britain with the deaths of people from the government's assessments on disability. But I do think that it did contribute to the culture around how people saw disabled people, so could contribute to that ultimate horrible, horrific ending. And we've got comedians here from all over the country who've been doing shows. We've got a comedy promoter as well, and we've also got someone who is the head of comedy and popular performance at the University of Kent, and that is Oliver Double. Hello, Oliver.
Hi, Crispin. How's it going?
I'm good. So, what did you think about the clip that I showed with Little Britain and it's how it may have been linked to what happened with the DWP assessing everyone and eventually these people dying because of being over-assessed and not receiving benefit?
Well, I think it's interesting, the examples of comedy that's sort of been taken down. I think with Little Britain, I think, you know, with some of the other ones, you can see however offensive people might see it, that there was some satirical intention. So, for example, in the Fawlty Towers episode where they use racial slurs, I mean, clearly those characters are supposed to be ridiculous, and they're supposed to be ridiculous because they are racist. But that, I'm not sort of defending it, I'm just saying that is clearly a satirical intent there. Whereas with Little Britain, it's not quite certain what their intent actually was. What I would say is that I do think comedy has an effect, because I think all art has an effect, like anything has an effect. How would it not have an effect? And I think that you know, how we've, I think comedy, you know, is where we live because we enjoy it so much. It's such a primal thing, laughing. And I think that that people might think art means nothing, that, you know, culture means nothing, but when I, Daniel Blake was first shown on TV, Tory ministers were lining up to say it's not a documentary, that wouldn't actually happen. Why would they be bothered if they didn't think it was a threat?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think people might be saying, oh, it's a culture war or something like that. But I mean, tastes change over time. Sometimes, I mean, Matt Lucas 3 years ago said he wouldn't do half the stuff he did on Little Britain if it was being made now. So,
right, and what you're saying is that we can't underestimate the significance of comedy on our lives. It is often seen as, oh, it's just a laugh, that kind of line, almost as if it's not significant. However, on the other side of that, doing shows, I mean, I've been putting on shows across the country for the Labour Party for 7 years. I often get people who are very dismissive of stand-up comedy and think that it's lightweight, it's not significant, doesn't mean anything, politics is far more important. People talking about politics is a more interesting thing than comedians. But in my experience, comedy can be far more effective as a political message than straight speeches from politicians. So, I mean, you're kind of saying the same thing as I am, that it is a significant thing, comedy, and we should take it seriously in a sense.
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people on the right come out with these kind of trite arguments. I mean, this one comes every few years from a right-wing columnist. Where are all the right-wing comedians? Why can't we have more right-wing comedians? I'll tell you where they are. They're in the 1970s, because there was almost nobody in the 70s who was not a right-wing comedian. I mean, they weren't necessarily explicitly right-wing, but they lined up when it came to the Tory election campaign, they would line up behind Thatcher, whoever it was. And then this thing happened, alternative comedy. I mean, Ivor was a part of it, Steve was part of it, and it changed what comedy was. It said that comedy can be explicitly political. It doesn't have to be right-wing. And it challenged the idea that comedy had to be racist, and it challenged the idea that comedy had to be sexist. And that made a huge cultural difference, I think, because we went from a situation where it was almost every comedian was right-wing to a situation now where there are right-wing comedians. We know there are, because they use it as their unique selling point.
Yeah.
They build themselves.
You just mentioned Steve. So, Steve, yes. you were part of the sort of alternative comedy movement when it started. How do you think things have moved on since then?
Well, things have moved on. Certainly, as Oliver was saying, that it's taken as read that you don't be racist or sexist. But I think one of the biggest things that the alternative comedy circuit did as well was about authorship, is because the old frilly shirted brigade, as we call them, it was taken as for granted that you would use everyone else's jokes. And that has been, I think, probably one of the biggest changes in comedy, is that you don't go around nicking someone else's material. That's been a huge sea change. I would say, by the way, there are quite a few right-wing comedians now. They all tend to live on Facebook. But there's quite a few plying their trade, and they explicitly put themselves in opposition to what they see the comedy hegemony of the left wing. But there's quite a lot of them, and then they build themselves as the only right-wing comedian in town, and there's quite a few of them.
So what do they do, these right-wing comedians, that's different from you, for example? What kind of jokes do they?
Well, they were taken explicitly. If I was to do something about the injustice of the Windrush scandal, they would take the piss and go the other way. They're deliberately trying to present the opposite point of view and undermine left-wing comedy as they see it. That's what they're doing.
So they're not using racial or sexist.
I would say the vast majority of them, no. I mean, Ollie's dead right about that. I mean, although you do see pockets of it, I'm still surprised as I travel around the country, and you'll hear someone do some material. Sometimes you'll think, my God, what decade are we living in? It does still, there are pockets of it still left, but not that. It's not a main thing now.
But I mean, you do gigs when it's not lockdown. You're doing gigs all the time, all over the country. And it's rare for you to see people on the live circuit who would be doing something that you'd regard as particularly racist or sexist.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that's one of the things that alternative comedy did change, but I don't know. I think that still there's a long way to go, because we still have to get. I would say one of my biggest things about comedy is comedy in class, because I'm fed up of seeing television programs on television where the working class characters are still thick and stupid. There's a comedy on at the moment called The Other One, and I don't like the working class character in that at all, because they're fat, thick and stupid, and I still think that's got to be changed in comedy.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Little Britain, that was pretty much a lot of their portrayals of people was particularly in class, wasn't it?
Vicky Pollard, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Steve. I'm just going to move on to Ivor, who's was also there with the beginning of alternative comedy. Ivor, you're also a promoter of a club, aren't you? I mean, obviously when it's not lockdown.
Yeah, I've been running small comedy clubs in London for nearly 40 years, and I also perform myself. I have to say that I've been grappling with these questions of what's offensive and what isn't, and in what context is it okay to say certain things and what context it isn't. And I'm going to be perfectly frank, so I still haven't come up with the answers. They're fascinating questions. And this is partly because it seems to me that comedy is something to do with taking risks. Good comedy is about having the courage to say something which maybe others can't, and using laughter as the medium with which to communicate with your audience. And you've got to accept, if you're any comedian worth their salt, irrespective of where they come from, is only any good because they've taken the risk of saying something that other people might find difficult, or dare I say even offensive. So I don't claim to know the answer to these questions of where these boundaries and borders exist, and in truth I don't think anyone else does. What I'd also think about comedy, which makes it special, is that I think comedy is something of a safe space. You know, I think, you know, culturally in Britain, we recognise that humour's important, and we do cut generally. Historically, I think we've cut comedians quite a lot of slack to have a go at trying to do something a bit different and trying to be a bit more challenging. Without that cultural history, I don't think alternative comedy would ever have happened. But what I do think is this, that I am sure about, is that comedy is something to do with truth. It's something about having the courage to say that, you know, what good comedy to me in the context of this conversation is about people having to acknowledge their current political realities, namely that we have an incompetent government who failed us on lockdown and is now going to ease up lockdown far too quickly, and people are going to die. That is the truth or reality. And we need comedians who now be able to address that using their ability to make people laugh in a funny way. On an international front, in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm a Jewish person, they're planning to annex the West Bank. You know, I've been out to the West Bank, you know, 3 times. I know what's going on there. It's no surprise to me that basically there's a land grab going on, and we have to find a way of saying that I've expressed these views and I'm completely blacklisted by the Jewish community, blah, 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 because I'm prepared to say the truth, and I do it in my own shows and my own work, because without it, it's just telling jokes. It's just killing time. Anyone can do that. You know, go for a walk. You don't need to come and listen to me. The brilliant clip that you showed, Crispin, of that play by Trevor Griffiths called Comedians, which influenced me and lots of other people, where we saw just the clip that the guy saying what good comedy should consist of. I tell you what, the central line, if you go and read that play or seen it, will know: traitors fear the truth. Traitors fear the truth. Traitors fear the truth. It reappears again and again and again, and that's why people worry about comedians, because some of us have or fight to find the courage to say what we regard as the truth and say it publicly, irrespective of the consequences. That's what a good comedian does. And it's not necessarily an easy job to do, but that's what I think it's all about.
Oh, thank you, Ivor. I'm just going to, and look, Steve's giving you a round of applause there, but he's muted, so you can't hear it. I'm just going to bring in Tom Mayhew. Tom?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm good. Now if you don't mind me, I'm not being patronising, but you're quite young as a comedian, and you've had quite a bit of success already with a quite political act that you've got. And there do seem to be. Do you think there are more political comedians now than there used to be? And do you benefit from being political, or do you think it holds you back in the club sense if you do a gigs on the club scene?
I would say generally more young people today are probably political than ever, because growing up as someone who was born in the 90s, like as soon as I entered the adult world, I was faced with a recession, I was faced with like a climate crisis, I was faced with all these sort of issues. So to be young, you have to be political, because these things were immediately facing us straight away. So I think generally as a generation, we're probably, I'd say, more politically aware than previous generations, and I think that does mean even people who aren't overtly political, still, you'll see us all on Twitter still tweeting things. We're all still very passionate about these things, because generally I think our generation feel very let down by consecutive governments, and I think it means a lot of us want to sort of fight and change things and make things better for ourselves.
Do you? I mean, when you've been doing gigs, have you noticed people who don't appreciate your type of jokes and would prefer you to, do the mother-in-law kind of stuff?
Yeah, no, definitely around the time of the Brexit vote and the general elections, people don't really always seem to take kindly to political comedy. But if it's what you want to say and it's what you care about, then that's what you have to do. It's what you have to talk about. I always think that comedy is an art form, and art should be, something you believe in, something you care in, something that really matters to you. And so if what you care about is, the political spectrum or injustice, then I'm going to talk about it. And if people don't like it, then they can go watch anything else. They can watch someone else,
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to move on to Don, who's a regular on our show. Don, how do you find being a stand-up? Because your act is unique, isn't it? I mean, as you say, you've got a list of how do you describe your act again?
Well, I'd say I'm a gag merchant who talks about left-wing politics, conspiracy theories. I'm also talk about coming from an Indian family and what's it like having mild difficulties like dyspraxia and Asperger's. So it's quite a mix. And
has comedy been a good outlet for you as a way of expression? Do you think is comedy a really important way for you to communicate? If it wasn't comedy, would you enjoy life?
No, I think comedy's been hugely important. A lot of people have told me I've come out of my shell because of being Asperger's. And I wasn't the most confident, and comedy's allowed me to do that. And it's been important because it gets me, I know this sounds a bit cliche, but it allows me to speak my truth and what I think is going on.
And what's your view on this controversy about Little Britain? Did you like Little Britain?
I like it. I think it's off its time. I don't think it'll be remade today, but you were saying about the actor thing. I think the main problem is not Little Britain. I think that's a problem. The main problem is we need to somehow get the general British population to stop reading the right-wing press and believe things like that will benefit claimants. All benefit claimants claiming benefits while working and stuff like that. I have a wider problem with comedy, and I think even though I come from a middle class background, I think comedy's become too liberal and middle class. And that's the big problem. You see a program like Stuart Lee's alternative comedy vehicle. Brendan Burns called that show "Where's All the Black People?" It's not really that alternative. I mean, two Asian comics you had on that show were Nish Kumar and Paul Sinner. Great comics, but they're the most whitest comics you've seen. And it feels like there's a certain class of comedy. I mean, some of the great black comedians like Mo Gilligan have had to make it on their own. They've had to go through Instagram. So it's like there's a certain class, these are Oxford educated. I mean, I'd like to see Jason Patterson and Tom Mayhew on TV because they bring a different perspective and they're equally, if not funnier, than the people we see on television. The people on television don't speak for me necessarily.
All right, that's interesting. So I mean, the other thing I also noticed when I was doing the circuit is that there was a kind of black comedy circuit and a white comedy circuit. Is that still the case?
I think I think it's getting better now because you look at the lineups of the comedy stores, you see more black and Asian comedians, so it's breaking it down. But I think the black comedy circuit and Asian comedy circuit is still important. But yeah, it's less segregated than it was. Right.
I'm going to bring in Patrick.
Oh, hi, Crispin.
Are you ready for this?
Oh, ready. What are we doing?
It's conversation.
Sounds like we're dancing. I feel like we're on Strictly Come Dancing. Are you ready, Patrick? Yeah. Put the music.
Okay. Well, so Patrick, your act is amazing. When you seem to come into the live performance, you hug everyone in the crowd, and you know you're very good with an audience and stuff.
Well, I'm probably the main reason the coronavirus started.
No, let me finish. I'm trying to compliment you, please.
Go on, you carry on.
The other thing is I don't hear offensive, nasty jokes from you. I don't hear you attacking people, and it makes people laugh just as much to hear you, or more. It makes them laugh even more to hear you than some of the people who are really looking for cheap laughs at other people's expense. Is that something you deliberately set out to do, or are you just a really nice guy?
I feel like I've been set up here because if I say I'm a really nice guy, you're going to bring on loads of people who hate me or that I've ripped off in the past, and you're just going to put them up one at a time. It's like the worst version of This Is Your Life. Remember this voice, this person that you left in a lay-by that owed you £50. Do you remember that one? No, I think, look, the reason, I mean, you made a good point, the way that you say, look, the British comedy, unlike, well, I suppose, like most of the comedy around the world, we're very lucky here in the UK. The reason why we get so many international acts come to the UK is because we have such a wide range styles of comedy. You can have your people who just will do jokes, to do the gags, whatever. You'll have deadpan, or you'll have, like, you know, very physical comedy. You'll have different styles of it. You'll have offensive comedy, or you have, you know, your really family-friendly comedy. It wasn't really a conscious choice for me, but I think I always, my comedy always comes from, like, you know, from my upbringing, my background. It was always sort of the only way to break down boundaries with people was with humor, you know, and to get people on side, particularly when I grew up, we were very, you know, working class, we were immigrants, you know, we weren't from the area. So the only way you could fit in, either fight 600 people in your school and try and make them like it, or just make them laugh. And I think that's the thing that really worked for me. So I thought, you know what, if you just bring people on your side and, you know, use comedy to do that. And yeah, I mean, look, my comedy isn't offensive at all. It's not that that's a personal thing, but I think I remember my dad, he would say, you know, he used to, it's quite funny because you look at people like Billy Connolly, and who's a great comedian, but he worked at the shipyards. And my dad, the reason we came to the northeast of England was he was working at the steelworks. And all the time, you know, my dad, I'd hear the people that'd be swearing, they'd be free, and my dad would get racist abuse because he was originally from Ireland, but also my mum's Iranian. So I used to grow up and I'd see the abuse that she'd get or the family would get. But I remember my dad would always say to me, say, look, you know, even though he'd swear whatever, he'd say certain things, you know, he'd say, whenever you go on stage, you know, if you ever speak to people, you'll never freaking swear, you'll never freaking do it. And he would swear at me to tell me not to swear, not to be offensive, to do all that. So it was a bit like, it was a bit funny the way he was saying it, but it was a bit confusing. But then I thought, you know what, he's right, because the only way you're going to connect with people is by not, you know, being offensive at them, you know, is to show a bit of vulnerability. And I think it's quite interesting, and everyone here has mentioned it already, about the shows, about what's been happening with TV. And I think the problem is, well, maybe not a problem, but the reason why that's come to so much light now is because we're these shows like Little Britain or whatever, which, you know, at the time were good, but they was the humor was coming from vulnerability. But the problem was the people who were showing these characters weren't from that background themselves. I mean, David Williams, you know, and Matt Lucas, great comedians, very good and stuff, but they're not from that background. If you've got two people who'd grown up who'd come from that background, and then they did them characters, we wouldn't be having this conversation now, because we're like, well, we're talking about our background. And I think that's the problem. I think loads of people have mentioned this already, where comedy should be about punching up. It's not about punching down. And I think if you can get jokes like that, then it's much funnier. Because we can, you know, it's like any kid at school or whatever could make a joke about the kid that's weaker than them, the kid that's on their own. You know, anyone could do that. It's about the little kid who comes back and makes fun of the bully. And I think that's where good comedy comes from.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it's been interesting to hear about, it's sort of like being authentic as well, isn't it? It's about being yourself as a person when you're on stage. I mean, there's a lot of comedians who when they start off, they want to be a different type of person, and it doesn't tend to work. I mean, I wanted to look like a hard man when I was on stage, but nobody took me seriously. So I had to come clean and wear the jacket and the hat and try and win people over, you know, whatever way you can. Yeah,
but you don't realise, I've seen it as from when I'm watching, I've done gigs with you, even when you go on stage, you can't see this, but I'm with the audience, I'll be sat there from the side watching, and as soon as you go on with that red jacket, people are already laughing. And that is a gift. You know, every other comic would love that. I'd love to be able to wear a shiny red jacket like that and just get laughs, you know. And it is, but people know that you can carry that off because you've got that warmth as well. You know, you're not an aggressive comic. But then saying that, there is so many good aggressive or offensive, not offensive, but a good comics. Like, look at Bill Burr in America. I think Don mentioned this, loads of like great American comics. And I don't think we would struggle to get like a Richard Pryor in the UK, would struggle to get a Bill Burr or something like that, because you don't have that. In the UK, we don't really have that sort of opportunities for people like that.
Oh, well, that's a great contribution, Patrick. You're not only funny, but you know stuff too. You're clever guy.
I just do what everyone else said.
But I'm gonna have to end the conversation, but I'll go back to Oliver.
Yeah.
So what seeing as you started the conversation, I'd like to end it with the person who started.
All right.
The thing I picked up from what we've just spoken about is the lack of diversity within especially the BBC and areas like that. The working class voice is not really heard.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, again, if you go back in time, I think working class people used to be better represented in comedy, and I think it's also a question of selection as well, isn't it? I mean, there are brilliant working class comics out there, but you know, the people who seem to be given the shiny series, going around with a parent or a friend doing travelogues and being amusing for camera, they're often not from a working class background. You know, they're slightly posher. I mean, that's part of a whole bigger debate anyway, isn't it? Because there's a whole thing about, you know, acting being sort of dominated by people from privileged backgrounds and things like that as well. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think as well, if I've got to say, I think sometimes it's I mean, this picks up a little bit on what Steve was saying earlier, but sometimes I think some people on the left find it easier to challenge things like sexism or racism than class prejudice, which can be more coded and hidden sometimes. I mean, that's ridiculous. I'm not trying to say that racism isn't a problem. Clearly it is. It's a massive problem, and you know, we're particularly aware of it at this moment in time. But what I'm trying to say is that the kind of very sort of people who are sort of painfully wanting to be absolutely right on every issue, sometimes sort of weirdly forget class is also a really important issue.
Yeah, I think this actually has a lot to do with the Little Britain thing as well, and what Patrick was saying. You know, if we don't have people to make the comedy themselves from those groups, and we have to have someone else playing them, then it doesn't work, and it just doesn't feel comfortable anymore. Maybe we've moved on to the point where we can't really put programs on with Little Britain type, you know, sort of stereotyping class characters and disability.
I think what's interesting about Little Britain is it's not like it was made in the 1970s. It was made comparatively recently. It was made this century.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think what was happening was it was almost a thing of backlash against what had happened with alternative comedy. Alternative comedy had really successfully challenged racism and sexism in comedy. And I think that then what started to happen was people sort of went, oh, I wonder if we could bring blackface back or something, as if that was edgy. People used to talk about that a lot, edgy, as if that was a good thing. But I mean, why would you do that? What's the purpose of that? And also, you know, I mean, the thing with blackface is it's such a long and awful history, right? Because it goes back to the early 19th century. And it's a history of ridicule and sort of, you know, white supremacy. I mean, and there are more complicated aspects to it than that, but essentially that's what it's about. So why would you, like, what's edgy about bringing that back? I mean, you know.
Yeah. No, it's interesting you say it's like Little Britain might have been a counter to the alternative comedy movement, but I think it's almost like a wave, and then maybe we've got a new wave now with people who are from their own, speaking from their own voices, with their own voices, and not needing to play other characters. And it all seems a bit weird when people do that now.
There was a really interesting moment about 20 years ago when Ali G was first becoming a huge thing, where a lot of black comedians were saying, well, okay, he's technically maybe not impersonating a black person, but he's playing a white guy who's clearly sort of, I mean, through the prism of being a white guy who wants to be black kind of thing. He's sort of making fun of black culture. But at that time, it was very difficult for black comedians to get on TV. And I really understand, I really sympathize with that feeling. You know, it must be galling to be a really talented black comic and see this white guy getting on telly with this sort of character, you know, the nearest that black comics were getting to being on telly was through, you know, Ali G, who clearly was Sacha Baron Cohen, not a black person.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a good discussion, and I've learned a lot from it, and it's good to see Don and Patrick getting involved as well. And now we are going to move on to the fun topic of the Labour Leaks update. And I'm going to ask Pamela Fitzpatrick, are you?
I'm here.
There,
yes,
Pamela?
I'm here.
Hi, Pamela.
Hi, Crispin. Thanks.
To you. So we haven't spoke for a while because we've had various shows that have been tributes to people like Diane Abbott and Jeremy Corbyn, and then we've had other things going on. There's a lot been going on in the party since we last spoke. The new General Secretary. What's your news on the ground?
Okay, so now I hate to say, but there's no news in terms of suspensions with the people named in Labour Leaks, which is really depressing. We've got a new General Secretary. We've heard very little from them. I keep hearing every day about other people who've been suspended. And I have to then go back and think to myself, what are the people in Labour Leaks accused of? So let's just remind ourselves, because we kind of get a bit used to it and forget. So the people in Labour Leaks who haven't been suspended are accused of racism, ableism, misogyny, not processing complaints about anti-Semitism, working to undermine a Labour government, and lots of other things, but they haven't been suspended. I've got my washing machine going, you can hear.
Wow.
Hang on a moment, let me switch it off.
Oh, don't switch it off. You mid-wash. Don't do it mid-wash. That will only make it smell.
There's no possibility. No possibility. I've had IT problems today. So anyway, no, I won't go into all of that. But just quickly, so those people haven't been suspended, yet other people have. And obviously, I don't know all the detail of the things of the people who've been suspended, but you have to think, what heinous crime have they committed that they have been suspended when people who have worked against us getting a Labour government have not? And I think the issue, there's been a lot going on, as you say. We've had the terrible death in America. We've had people taking the knee. And we have a picture of Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner in an empty room taking the knee, but not doing anything about racism that they have the power to do something about. And people are contacting me and being really angry about this and saying, all we ask is you suspend these people and properly investigate, but they're not doing that. And then I have to say, this morning, I've been at a Black Lives Matters event that I was involved in organising in Harrow. And I've had senior people in the Labour Party trying to ban the meeting. And the reason they're trying to ban the meeting is purely because I'm involved in the organising and I'm on the left. So this hasn't gone away. All this stuff, this sectarianism, all the kind of factionalism within that was revealed in that report is still there. And my worry is, you heard Keir Starmer talk about having unity, trying to achieve unity. There's not much sign of that. With the appointments that have been made, not much unity. I haven't seen anything that's given any real comfort to Black members. And they are telling me they are leaving in their droves. So I'm really worried about that, really concerned, and just really disappointed. We now hear that on the anniversary of Diane being 33 years as an MP, that Keir Starmer's going to take some measures to look into racism within the party and has established a panel. Now, whether this is true or not, the rumours are that the panel is comprised entirely of white people. So it seems that on every level, Keir is missing the point every single time. So honestly, could do better. So, you know, what can I say? To apologise for my washing machine and I hope, oh, I know what I was going to say. Lots of people have written letters and are hoping that the NEC will take notice of these, but actually they don't fall within the structure of the Labour Party to actually do things. So if you are concerned about this, maybe the best thing is to put in a formal complaint, and you can put in a formal complaint through the Labour Party website about this. So, you know, I would encourage you, if you do feel concerned about this, just go ahead and do so.
Oh, thank you, Pamela. Yeah, I've been a bit disappointed with the response as well. I think what happened in the leaks, what we read about Diane Abbott, especially in the leaks, I'm not naming anyone and what said. I'm just saying Diane Abbott was mentioned in the leaks, and I think she deserves much better than that. From the party, because as we saw on the show on Wednesday, there's so much love for Diane Abbott and what she's achieved. I think we should honour her by making sure that people who were so offensive towards her and unhelpful to the point of telling the media where she was, I mean, that's just unforgivable. I think we should really do what we can to make sure these people are brought to account. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Thank you very much. And your washing machine sounds, is it a new one or is it an old one?
It's an old one. It's very noisy. Apologies,
like,
everybody.
It sounded a bit like it needs a few screws.
It really does. It's stopping just on time now. So anyway, apologies.
Okay. Well, thank you. We're now moving on to our section. Having been talking about comedy, I'm going to ask our comedians to give us a little lockdown update. And I'll start with Suzy. Are you there?
Hello. Was just
Hello, Suzy.
Hi.
How's things?
Right, thanks. I'm having a lazy day today. Like the last 3 months, to be honest. I'm been watching a series on Netflix and having a snooze and doing not much really. But I was just reading on the chat. Someone was talking about Jo Brand and how much we love Jo Brand and how she's very much herself. And she started out as a mental health nurse in a psychiatric ward and stuff. And I met her years ago, and I first started doing comedy when I was 30. And she said to me that she started out at about the same age, and it's a good age to start out because you've got a bit of life experience and a bit of stories to tell. And I feel bad for not joining in your discussion. I think I was a bit worried you were going to be really serious, and you know what I'm like. Normally my political hot takes, but I think I thought I didn't want to give too much of it. I just like make people laugh really, and that's it. But I have been affected by my accent quite a lot actually. You were talking about working class and things like that. I've been called Vicky Pollard because obviously I got to be careful to never say yeah but, because that's when people think Vicky Pollard. But I used to hate my accent, and I used to think it made me sound silly and a bit dumb, because the kind of West Country sort of accent, it doesn't conjure up. You wouldn't imagine sitting on a plane and suddenly the pilot comes over and it's my accent. Would you feel slightly less safe if it was me saying, "Oh, I'm your pilot"? You'd think, "Oh God." Do you know what I mean? So there is something about a posh accent that makes you feel safer. But my accent, you'd probably hear more in a bakery saying, "Do you want another bun, love?" Do you know what I mean? But I've learned to embrace it. I used to hate it when I was younger, but actually doing comedy, people find it really warm, and they kind of warm to you, because I like to just be myself, and my comedy is just an enhanced version of myself really. And I have learned over the years, there was a piece of material I did about the Jeremy Kyle show, and I basically criticizing the way people dressed on the Jeremy Kyle show and the fact that they all have millions of kids and lots of partners. And then when the Jeremy Kyle show got taken off air for a very serious reason, I had to drop that piece of material because I just didn't want to sound mean. And there's certain things I've said without really thinking about it affecting anybody in the audience. I mean, there's things that people talk about that upset me, and I've got personal things, but I think you can joke about anything, but I completely dropped that because I thought I don't want to sound mean about that, because that's the punching down thing, right? Talking about people on the Jeremy Kyle show. So I dropped that. The comedy I've grown up with, things like Heidi High. I was going to show you my makeup bag. Do you recognize this character? Can anybody tell me in the chat?
Ted something, isn't it?
It's Ted Bovis from Heidi High. I grew up watching Heidi High, which is one of the reasons I became a redcoat. And Ted Bovis was obviously the camp comic. And I think maybe as a youngster, that's who I wanted to be. I wanted to be a female Ted Bovis, but I got this makeup bag. Isn't it cool? In fact, one day I might just wear that as an outfit. And I love Victoria Wood. And Victoria Wood writes about people like me, really, like, normal everyday people with their everyday struggles. I didn't really know what to talk about today. I haven't got anything funny, but I see the shops are opening next week, so I might finally get a refund on my dress from Monsoon, who have now gone bankrupt. Yeah. So, if anybody wants any lottery numbers, I've got great timing, and I've got this crystal ball. If anybody wants to know what's going on, look.
Yeah.
Oh. I feel like I've got some kind of psychic thing, because I bought my holiday clothes the day before my holiday got cancelled. I bought some stuff off Monsoon the day before they went bust. But anybody got any questions for my crystal ball?
Is Fulham going to go up this year?
Oh, sorry, you just talked about football, and we're not quite there yet with the football. Okay. I'm afraid we don't know about that one. Are you a Fulham fan?
Yeah, is Prince Charles? Is there a Prince Charles imposter? Because I saw on Facebook, someone said there's a fake Prince Charles. That it's not the real thing.
Well, they've been saying that about Melania Trump, haven't they? And somebody said Prince Philip was frozen years ago, and they just wheel him out now and again. So I don't know about that one. But anyway, this is a lamp from the range, $4.99, guys, $4.99. It did tell me earlier that my diet will start on Monday, so hopefully there is something in that. I really enjoyed the discussion today. It was nice to see Ivor. I've done a few gigs for Ivor. They're always a really good laugh.
Well, I hope we can get you back on the. I hope the circuit opens up again. You can go back to do those.
Doing myself. I was considering what would I do if I didn't do this. I have no idea. I think I'm unemployable, to be honest. I'm not allowed to go back. I can't go back to work at Madame Tussauds because there was with Johnny Depp, so I'm not allowed to go there. Lifetime ban. I don't know if I should say what happened. It's afternoon, but I didn't know the wax wasn't that available, and I'd put on a bit of weight, and I was just a bit lonely. So anyway, I'll let you get on.
All right.
It's
Okay. Thank you, Susie. Patrick, back to you. So what have you been up to this? Because we didn't have a chat on Wednesday. We talked a lot about Diane Abbott.
Wednesday. Yeah, I've been
that one with Diane Abbott, wasn't it?
That was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. I've been busy this week, Crispin. I've been watching videos online of Suzy Bennett working at Madame Tussauds. So it's all been leaked. So if anyone wants to message me, I've got loads of these videos. They're everywhere. Suzy, you're blowing up all over the internet. It's like unbelievable. So no, good news though. Good news. There is, I don't know if everyone's probably seen this. New Zealand is the first country that's got no more cases now of coronavirus. There was a picture, everyone would have seen this. It was, I think 2 days ago, of a comedy club in New Zealand, rammed, everyone back to normal, a comic on stage. I thought, this is amazing. Good news for New Zealand. They've only had, I think there was 1,154 cases, 1,132 recoveries, only, unfortunately, 22 deaths. Now, the bad news for New Zealand is that within the next month, they're expected 65 million British people going there on holiday. Even worse news for New Zealand is that Dominic Cummings and his family are driving there now just to test his eyesight. So I think and then this was amazing. This was in the news this week as well. I was like, it went, holiday companies are now trying to tempt British people to go onto holiday this summer. Because obviously, what do we want to do? We've all been sat at home not working for 3 months. Let's go and sit in a hotel somewhere for 2 weeks with and they're slashing it by about a third because they have to, because nobody's worked. Like nobody's been paid for 3 months like this. And I was looking at all these holiday deals. I thought, are these people ridiculous? And this is what they're thinking about, getting these holiday resorts opened up. And one of the most popular resorts in the UK, everyone will know this, is Benidorm. And Spain is the biggest holiday destination for British people. So they've started targeting this advertising across the UK. They were doing this where, come to Benidorm, they're doing social distancing in Benidorm beaches. I don't know if you've seen it on the news. They had, they were marking out on the beach. So it'd be like for families with kids, they have to go here if you're, and then they'll section off sections for adults. Then they section off for older people. And then for hen parties and stag parties, they've sectioned off a prison for them, so it's like an open prison. They'll just and then this is the craziest thing, because I thought Spanish people, I love their optimism, but they don't realise, right? British people are not going to pay, right, to go on holiday to a resort where to keep the rules right. Look, for instance, right, if you go on any of these resorts, it's an all-inclusive buffet. You've got the bar and stuff, and you have to queue up 2 meters apart. Right, and they're going to be queuing. Then people won't be allowed to queue indoors at these resorts to have a drink. They have to start the queue outside. So literally, as soon as the plane lands at the airport in Alicante or wherever, Benidorm, as soon as you step off the plane, that will be the back of the queue to the bar. It will literally be about 3 miles long to the airport. People queue. It is the first time in history that your luggage will get to the hotel before you do, because people are queuing like this, and then this is the great thing about it. They said that they're going to make it compulsory, which is fair enough, you know, it has to be, where people will have to, when they come on holiday to these resorts, they're going to have to wear face masks. And I said, are these people mad? Have you ever met a hen party from Newcastle or a hen party from Glasgow or Essex who paid £350 each to go and only get their forehead tanned? There is no way on earth they're going to be walking around with face masks on a resort like that. And then just quickly, because I know we'll probably run out of time, but this was a genuine something else that I'd seen before. This happened in July of 2019. Now, I know everyone on here is too young to remember this, but 2019 was last year. And in July of last year, I was just finishing my tour. I started a new tour now, but just before the lockdown. And I was doing this tour and I was talking about what had happened about this trip going somewhere. And there was a massive story that had broken. It was all over it was international press. and it was about a luxury cruise liner, which was ridiculous because I remember when we were growing up, we couldn't afford it. These were like luxuries, whereas now apparently everyone can go on a luxury cruise liner, and they've made it accessible. I don't know how; it still sounds expensive, but there was. I don't know if you heard this story, but in July 2019, there was a mass brawl because loads of British people were on holiday on this boat, on this P&O luxury cruise. There was a mass brawl. 55 people had kicked off because there was a fella in a clown outfit. Right, he'd gone into a restaurant, right, where there's obviously a dress code when you're on this cruise ship. You have to wear tuxedos, whatever, or a smart suit. And the whole article, I read the whole thing, but the headline was, you know, bloke in a clown outfit sets off a 55-man brawl on a luxury cruise liner. And then it talks about the whole thing, what happened. But I thought, nobody at all explained in this news article why a bloke had taken a clown outfit on holiday. I mean, what is his wife doing? What is his family doing? Why is nobody speaking about it? And, you know, when you're going on holiday, you're there, you're panicking with your partner. You're going, listen, do we need to take all these outfits? And my partner will go, look, are you going to use all your suitcases? I want to put some of my stuff in yours. And I'm like, listen, we're not taking 2 suitcases. The second suitcase to put on an airline, it costs more than the holiday. Let's just take one. And she's like, and I'm taking outfits out. I'm saying, you don't need all these dresses. What's all this? And then I'm pulling out stuff. I'm saying, listen, you've got to make half of this suitcase empty because I need to get my squeezy water flower in. I need to get my cannon in. I need to get my big clown outfit, my braces in. I want to, you know, make a proper impact on this holiday. And I think this is going to be the biggest problem we're going to face in the summer of 2020 is trying to impose rules on not just British people, but anyone going on holidays to wear a face mask, to wear your things. And there was, the last thing very quickly was, I had to do a show in Egypt and I was doing some shows around the Middle East, and then I finished off across in, and it was a resort in Sharm el-Sheikh, and that was more British people. It was lovely. It was all nice out there, and there was a code on the restaurant, and it said at all times to come in this restaurant, please wear trousers, like be covered like this, and it was hilarious. And I swear to God, I was literally just going in, I was on my phone just going to get something. There was like a Scouse family turned up. And this bloke, and this is like last year, this bloke just staring at me going, trousers? You're joking, aren't you? It's 42 degrees, mate. And like this, he goes, all I brought is shorts. And the guy was going, I'm very sorry, it is not my rules, you have to wear trousers. And his wife took him off. He had to go off to his room. He came back 10 minutes later. He had 3 pairs of shorts, safety pinned all around his legs. And he was walking back in like this. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is exactly what's going to happen. You wait until 2020 when people be going around with face masks, just like sellotape to the face. So so I'm looking forward to the holidays, Crispin.
That's a good end to that story. I like that one. Yeah,
genuinely, I wish I could make this up, but all of this is genuinely true. It was to be fair, I did feel sorry for the Scouts fella because I did say it was 42 degrees, and I understand. But I said to him, look, these are rules, aren't they? You know, when you're in the restaurant, because when people are eating buffet food, the last thing they want to do is look at someone's legs and think, oh, God, I could have a bite to that. I mean, it is bonkers. We're literally carnage.
I've got to move on. I made a really bad. I've made a bad mistake in the discussion earlier because Alan Francis had arrived and I didn't see him in the room. It's just called Alan. And I've made a balls up there, but you're there, Alan.
I'm here.
Would you rather tell us a lockdown story or tell us what your views on comedy are? You've got a choice.
A view on comedy or a lockdown story? I don't know. I mean, I'm just going slightly mad. It was amazing listening to Patrick there and the short story. But yeah, I mean. Yeah, my view, I don't know what to say really. Views on comedy. Yeah, it's just been fascinating, hasn't it? All the Fawlty Towers stuff, Little Britain stuff, it's just, I think the clip you played at the beginning of the show of Trevor Griffiths' play sums it all up, doesn't it? I mean, and I think listening to Patrick there as well, being really funny about his trips, it's sort of, it's a comedian's job is to take it further and than you do when you're with your mates in the pub, when you're sitting around with your mates in the pub having a laugh, that's different, isn't it, from a professional comedian who's to take it further and not just punch down at easy laughs.
Yeah.
That's how, you know, and I think
have you
maybe
been drinking at all during lockdown? I just want to ask. Don't
Yes.
look round. But have you been drinking at all during lockdown?
Yeah, I have, and I have a collection of. I've been doing a character who comes on lockdown called Lord Rivington, and he drinks a bit. And this is my set.
Is it?
This behind me, my set. I used to have a copy of Mein Kampf there as well, but because I thought that was a joke, you know, quite a funny joke that this lord has got a copy of that just in the background. But I've taken that away now.
Well, thanks for taking it away for the show.
You don't want a copy of Mein Kampf on your show.
That might not have been a good move, but you mentioned it, which is probably just as bad as if it was there.
Yeah, no. So it was an academic copy, I have to say, which had some cultural commentaries in it. You know, it wasn't an original signed copy.
All right, well, Alan, I'm going to move. I'm sorry again. We'll have to get you on another show.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's been a really interesting discussion.
And
anyway,
saw that your clip was played to Ken Loach, didn't you?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. Love Ken Loach's stuff. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Crispin.
Thank you, Don. And Don.
Hello, Crispin. Hello, everyone.
You're the last of our comedians. Before we go into Clash of the CLPs, I'm sure there's people in Workington and Reading just itching to get on with their Clash of the CLPs. So, Don, how are you doing with lockdown?
Well, the thing is, Crispin, I've run out of jokes. In fact, I was going to play my washing machine in the background just to get some extra laughs, but someone's already done that. So, now, lockdown's okay. The thing I miss about not being in lockdown, the opposite, is I miss stand-up comedy, seeing all these comedy here. I miss live comedy. I miss gigging, even the heckling. Crispin, the only way I can get heckled now is if I leave my house dressed up as a statue. I don't know where that joke can go either way. I don't know the boundaries about comedy that much, and we should test it as comedians. And one of the reasons why I don't know it as well as other people, because I am slightly autistic. I have mild Asperger's. And I know what's in me thinking, not knowing where the boundaries are, the perfect job for me would be to work for this current Israeli government. Again, I don't know where the boundaries are. That joke can go either way. I am slightly autistic. Genuinely true story. Several years ago, diagnosed with a mild form of Asperger's syndrome. If you don't know what it is, it's a form of autism where you have problems communicating with people. Basically, you can't read someone else's body language. Now, I don't think I've got this Asperger's. I wouldn't be here today looking people in the eye trying to tell jokes. And anyway, one of the symptoms of Asperger's the doctor said I had, no word of a lie, was having one-sided conversations with other people. That's not Asperger's. What the doctor has just described there as a stand-up comedian. I'm starting to think what happened a few years ago when I got tested. My results got mixed up with someone who is genuinely autistic. And now what's happened? I tell you what's happened. There's some kind of Rain Man-like figure out there on the circuit who's been told by a doctor he's a comedian. And by the way, Crispin, I've only got mild Asperger's, so I'm not Rain Man, I'm more Drizzle Boy.
Right.
It sounds like the worst superhero ever. I'll leave with a few more things. First of all, people are talking about Little Britain and said, I can understand why people say Little Britain is a bit misogynistic, racist, even classist. And said, would Little Britain ever be made again today? No, because the people in Little Britain are now too busy working in Labour HQ, trying to undermine the left wing of the party. And also, Oliver was saying, where have all the right-wing comedians gone? I tell you, they're in government. That's where they've gone. A bunch of clowns we got there. And I'll leave with this. Speaking about Little Britain, should we ban it? I don't believe in banning things. I believe in educating people. But we have to educate ourselves. And I can do that because I'm dyspraxic. I got sacked from every job I've ever had. It gives me more time to think. We don't get enough time to think other than the lockdown. Before lockdown, most people for the first 12 to 18 years of their life, you're indoctrinated in education. And then for the next 50 years, working 50 hours a week in a job you really hate. just so you can buy some pokey little flat in the city. And you've got no time to philosophize about your own existence because you've got kids to look after. You're distracted by Britain's Got Talent or X Factor. And that's why you readily accept opinions that the Sun newspaper, the Daily Mail tells you. And all for what? Just so you can get a mediocre pension and then you die. Unfortunately, it's a lot worse for my Hindu parents because of reincarnation. They have to repeat the process again. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And now we come to the clash of the CLPs. And we have today for our show, we've got Reading and Workington. And I'm going to start with Reading. And we have here Helen. Are you there, Helen?
Hello.
Hi, Helen. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm a bit scared about what's going on in London at the moment. It's all a bit, and just heard our comrade Hassan has been ejected by police as well from Parliament Square. So it's all kicking off down there a bit. Yeah, so a bit heavy there, sorry, but it's a bit. There's some.
Well, no, I mean that's true, but we yeah, well we got to try and keep our spirits up.
Exactly.
And you know, hopefully Hassan will be okay. It says Alison says he's okay.
Yeah.
So now we're here for the important heat number 5 of Clash of the CLPs, and you're up against the mighty Workington. How are you feeling? Because you've got 2 constituencies in Reading, so you should have a good chance against them.
Double the fun, yeah.
What's the situation in Reading in terms of the last election? You had one seat was won by Labour and the other wasn't. Was a Tory one. That's quite common, isn't it? In Reading, has it ever been both have been Labour or?
It has. I think it has occasionally, but generally it's been sort of one or the other. So Labour in East and Tory in West, or Labour in West and Tory in East. So it's a strange one. The council is full majority Labour, not total control, but definitely majority Labour councillors.
And what do you think Labour's prospects are for the next election?
Well, in Reading, I suspect that the candidate who stood in Reading West, who stood on her sort of way of her approach was that she's a mum, an award-winning small business owner, and she lives in Reading. So, you know, very policy-based and things that she was really interested in doing stuff about. And I suspect she'll stand again. And is against Alok Sharma. He's the MP in Reading West. So, I mean, you'd hope that we would win that, even though it might not be what a lot of Labour people would want.
Okay.
In terms of just the sort of approach, it's very not left, I'll say.
And you're Matt Rodder. He's a junior minister, isn't he? Of some.
Yeah, he's Shadow Minister for Local Transport. He loves buses.
Right, you're making him sound exciting. So
generally, that's people say he's a very nice man.
Are you in his constituency or the other one?
I'm in the other one.
The other one. Okay, well you've got you've kindly come along with the team from Reading, and you have James Denny here.
Yeah.
James, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Oh, splendid.
Now you've been put down to perform some music.
Yes.
Are you doing it like Britney Spears with that headset?
Apologies for the So I was hoping no one would notice the headset. The only one I've got.
Are you going to get up and dance while you do it?
God, no.
No. All right.
No.
because you're just sitting down with a headset on, I'm wondering what is it? Is it beatboxing?
It's an old English folk ballad that I've repurposed for Reading. The Battle of Sowerby Bridge is now the Battle of Caversham Bridge, on the basis that we have a particularly I don't want to say fractured on a large call, but I've said it now, so there you go. Reading was an ideal setting for turning into a battle of the politics, really.
So how are you playing this? I'm just wondering, because you haven't got an instrument with you.
No, I'm doing it old English folk ballad broadsheet style, unaccompanied, and it's either going to go that everyone loves it or everyone hates my singing, and
all right, well,
go either way.
Okay, well, I'll leave you to it. But in your own time, do you want me to give you an intro?
I'll just crash in and get it over with.
Okay.
The Battle of Caversham Bridge were fought on the 44th of March. We turned out at the Butler and we lined up stiff as starch. We marched as far as Rivermead and the enemy hove in view. And they called our executive nasty names 100 times anew. We were amongst them. We were amongst them. We argued and we argued and we argued and we blew till the air for miles around were blue for an hour and a quarter. We held the foe at bay. There were only 2 held out that day, and we were amongst them. At the break of day, down Old Cow Lane, we raised the flag of red. Our good scouts Ron and Rooty came and tailed the tale of dread. They said the Blairites had advanced, so we retired down a lane, and they called our executive nasty names 100 times again. We were amongst them. We were amongst them. We argued and we argued and we argued and we blew till the air for miles around were blue.
No!
It's frozen.
Held out that day and we were amongst them. The enemy then retired to the wilds of Emma Green. They jumped down the roads, they were no longer seen. We found them all in the Tory club, all scattered on the floor. And they called our executive nasty names 100 times once more. We were amongst them. We were amongst them. We argued and we argued and we argued and we blew till the air for miles around were blue for an hour and a quarter. We held the foe at bay. There were only 2 held out that day, and we were amongst them. We chased the beggars from Whitley Wood till stockings all fell down. We cleared them out of Woodley Shore and ran them out of town. We came unto the castle tap, and there we raised a cheer. There was no more calling nasty names, there was only finest beer. We were amongst them. We were amongst them. We supped and we drank and we drank and we drew till the air for miles around were for an hour and a quarter. We put that beer away. There were only 2 carried home that day, and we were amongst them. There we go.
Wow. You're getting a lot of applause. So you wrote a song about kind of local dispute within the party.
Yes,
that was your. Have you played that to the people you had the dispute with?
Not yet.
Right. Well, when this comes out, you can always put it on a little clip and send it out, share it around. Thank you very much, James and Helen. I'm going to move on to our representative in Workington, who also happens to be a co-host on the show. Mark,
how you doing?
So are you able to beat that?
Well, I hope so.
Obviously, you're not doing the singing, but
no, Yvonne and Yes and I think they call them. Yes, I.
Shall I play their song first, and then we can have a chat after then? Okay, so I'm going to play Yvonne. Can you introduce who they are again?
Yes, I.
Yes, I is the name of the band.
Well, yes and I is yes, yes, in Cumbrian dialect. But Suzy's bothered about her dialect. She should listen to mine.
Okay, so let's see. Yes, I. Okay, and I'm going to play this song now.
Oh, well done.
Well, we've got lots of people clapping there, Mark. You picked a good one there. Are they members of the constituency, or are they imposters out from outside?
No, them people are good members. Yvonne's a campaign that during the election, got stuck right in. I know that she's a big supporter of Jeremy as well, but
right.
I mean, the sound wasn't too good for me there. I mean, they're absolutely brilliant, so it might even get them back on, but they're really, really good. And it's like everywhere else. You've got people who go knock on doors, they go out. They fought really hard in the election. I mean, at the start of that, they introduced themselves as working man and working woman. And well, you know how we featured in the national press, working man. It was working man and working man that done it, they said.
So do you think it's quite a task to win back Workington, do you think? Or I mean, you know a lot more than, I mean, when I went up there, you seemed to know everyone. I walked down the road, everyone was saying, all right, Mark. I mean, are you going to be, can I just ask you a question here, Mark, on the spot here? Would you put your name forward to be the candidate in Workington next time?
No, too old now. We want some younger people.
Can I just ask people on the chat, do you think Mark is too old to stand in Workington?
Yeah.
I think there's a few no's there, Mark.
Don't be doing a poll. Don't be doing a poll.
Quite a few no's coming up there, Mark.
Yeah, we've heard all that before. Listen, we've got to win back the seat, whoever it is that's standing. We've got an absolute, well, last week he voted for chlorinated chicken. He was one of the ones that laughed and joked when the Tories won about not putting the money up for the NHS. They're the kind of people that are representing us. We don't want them. It's as simple as that. We've got to work hard. We've got to work even harder than we have done and show people that we're electable and we can do that.
Would win. I'll tell you how they'd win. It's selecting you, Mark. Yeah, it's selecting you. They know you in Workington. Anyone who's been up there knows that you are known and you're popular. We don't need someone to come into Workington from somewhere else and make a mess of it. We need Mark there. So
we've had all that before.
Everyone watching this, we've only got 60 odd on. Come on, we're going to set Mark up here to be the.
I know you are.
But anyway, Mark, we're going to have to move on to the onto the quiz, and you have representing you. You've got
David Cornwall.
David, right? We've got Keith from Reading.
I've got great faith in David. Come on, David.
And we've got David from Workington. And Helen, I'm going to unmute you so you can get involved, cheering on your side. So, Keith, are you there? Keith? I thought I'd unmuted him. Oh. Has he gone?
It's a walkover. No show, no game. We take the points.
Where's he gone?
Keith.
It'll have to be Helen then.
He's there.
I'm unmuted now, but there was a delay, which was an attempt to nobble my contribution.
Oh, come on. I'm not having James writing another song about this. There's none of we're playing it fair and square in this quiz. So Keith and David, the first question for you on today's quiz is a picture. There's a lot of picture questions. The reason why, and people ask me why, it's because people can't Google as much with a picture question. Although I think I just saw Helen think, oh, I can do something. Anyway, here is question 1. I want you to identify who the person is. And the first one gets it.
Crispin, is this to one of us or to both of us?
Both of you.
And shout
Both
out
of
the
you.
answers.
Yeah.
Shout out the answer. Mark and Helen, please. No shouting out. Right. Okay. Here we go. First question. Who is this? Labour MP. He was an MP in Manchester from the 60s. He introduced an Act of Parliament on chronically sick and disabled persons, which recognised and gave rights to disabled people, the first time that had happened. Someone's Googling. Keith's looking down somewhere. Now, does anyone have an answer?
Well, Jack Ashley did a lot for the disabled and particularly blind people. I don't think that's Jack Ashley.
That's not Jack Ashley, no. It is Alf Morris.
All right.
And if you had a packet of Labour Heroes cards, you might have got that one. They are going to be on sale again soon, just in case. Anyway, question 2. See who gets this one. It's another picture question. Who is this?
That's Jenny Lee.
Jenny Lee.
Who said that first?
I did.
Pete.
Maybe.
So,
yeah, but I'm further away, so it takes longer.
we can't have so Reading are 1-0 up at the moment. Now we're going into a new round, which is questions of how well do you know your local Tories? And I've looked at your council website and I've found a couple of nice looking Tories, and let's see if you can identify them. The first one is from Cumbria. Do you know who that is? I suppose it's David. This is where you should be coming in. But Keith, if you go to Cumbria a few times, you might have bumped into him on the M6 or something. Do you know David?
Is that a recent photograph or a long time ago?
No, it's a recent one. He looks like that now. He buttons all his buttons up, all the way up to the top. He looks like a nice guy. He's from Silloth.
Yeah, he is.
You know he is just from looking at him. Oh, okay.
No, I reckon. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember his name.
His name, Mark. Do you know his name?
No, he's just a new one. He's new in the last 12 months, I think.
He looks new. His name's Owen Martin.
Owen Martin, aye.
Right, you're kicking yourselves. Now, here's your
well, Silloth's a different sort of place.
Now we're doing one for. This is a very small picture, so it makes it a bit difficult. But let's see how Reading get on with this. Who is this Tory?
I haven't a bloody clue.
He looks like a nice fella, does he not?
There's no such thing as a nice Tory.
Well, yeah, but if you didn't know he was a Tory, would you not think, oh, I'll go and have a chat with that guy? He looks like a nice guy.
He looks like a social democrat.
He is in Peppard Ward.
Really?
Yeah. Does that help? Where's Peppard Ward? It sounds
a long way away from where I am.
Is it? What, you're in Reading? You make it sound like it's the biggest metropolis ever.
It's out in the country, nearly.
Oh, is he a country person? Okay. Well, look, his name is Simon Robinson, and you'll never forget him again. If you saw him in the pub, you go up and say, "Hello, Simon. Nice to meet you." So nobody
He likes a laugh, doesn't he?
Nobody got their local Tories. So now I'm going to ask separate questions to each of you. The first one is to David. When was the Workington by-election? What year was the Workington by-election?
The one that Richard Page won. So 70. 1976.
Yes.
He's got it. Right.
He was in office for 3 years, and then we kicked him out again.
Yeah, I think Mark told me about that when I was up there. Well done remembering that date. Now here's a question for Reading. Who was Labour's candidate in Reading East in 2010? No Googling.
Yeah, no. She's now a shadow minister, and we're talking about she's shadow foreign secretary, I think. Annalise Dodds.
Yes, you've got her, but you got the wrong job. But I'll let you off because you got the name. She's actually the shadow chancellor. She's a shadow chancellor.
Oh right.
So she's done well, having lost that seat in 2010 and not winning the election as to be chancellor. Okay, so we have now a tie. Oh, no, we don't. We have 2-1 to Reading, but we do have the final section of the show, which is the final round, which is a singing competition. I've been asked by other people on this show who the co-host to stop doing a singing competition because it's awkward, and you've got a choice. You can either sing or you can tell us how Labour will win in the next election, and if your answer to that question is better than the other person singing, or your answer is better than their answer to how we'll win, then you are the champion. So who wants to start? Let's start with Keith. Do you want to sing, or do you want to tell us a really deep answer about how Labour will win the next general election?
Yeah, I'll do my best to tell you how Labour will win the next election.
Oh yeah, okay. By the way, on this one, you've only got half a minute. If you go over half a minute, then we cancel the question. Okay, I'm going to start the timer now.
Labour will win with socialist policies which create real change, a real change in the distribution of wealth and power to working people.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Okay, good one.
Very concise.
Now,
Dave.
David, do you want to take him on with an answer, or would you rather sing?
You don't want me to sing, Crispin.
Okay.
You really don't want me to sing.
All right. So can you do a neat answer like that?
Yeah.
I'll give you half a minute, and I'll start now.
We'll win Workington, and Workington, a typical constituency in a deindustrialised area devastated by Thatcher, by connecting back with those people that were our heart and soul many years ago, the people who've deserted us to the right and the far right. We've got to win back that red wall across the north of England and make inroads in the south.
Well done. All right. Okay, Mark, you can't just clap your own people. That's not over. It's not. Anyway. Okay, so well done to both of you. I'm going to now put the question out to everyone, and I'd like people to answer the poll. Who gave the best performance? I wasn't sure if they'd sing or do the answer. So that's the title. Who gave the best performance? The poll is now out there. Please answer. Did Reading or Workington give the best answer to the question of how they will win back for Labour, how Labour will win again? 50% have voted, 56% have voted. Still got, it's still close, so we can't really say who's won yet. Thank you, Wendy. Keith is Reading. David is Workington. It's very close. 68% have voted. So there's still a few who haven't voted. 70% have voted.
You never get 100% turnout.
75% have voted. God, it's so close. There's only one vote between them. There's two now. 77% have voted. And it says at the moment that Reading have got 23 and Workington have got 21. I'll give I'll count to 10 and then that will be the end of the poll. I'm not waiting anymore. 10, 9, 10, 9, 4, 3, 2, 1. And poll has now ended. And the results are Reading have won by the slimmest margin. Workington, you know, you should have got more people, got a better turnout, really. That's the key. That's the key. Get your people out and you win.
Vote early, vote often.
So that's quite clearly Reading have won this round of Clash of the CLPs. So congratulations to Reading. We don't know who you're playing yet because in the quarterfinal because we haven't.
Congratulations, Keith.
Thank you very much indeed. I wish you well in any future performance of a similar kind.
Thank you.
Well done, David. That was like an NEC election, that.
Isn't it great to see people getting on so well? So thank you everyone from Reading and Workington for coming on. It's great to hear from you, and you all look in good spirits. I love your music, and you're very good at your points about how we'll win. I thought they were both excellent, and we can learn from each other. And we've got to get together. CLPs need to learn from each other if we're going to win as well. I think it's important we all mix together. That's part of this whole thing. Before we go on to Rob at the end, I'd just like to flag up that on Wednesday we have another good show coming up with Shami Chakrabarti Refugee Week special. We'll have lots of guests on there, and it's going to be a great night. So I hope you can come along to watch that. But before anything else, before the end, we're going to have a song from Rob Johnson. And Rob, thank you so much for waiting all this time.
Always a pleasure, and it's always very entertaining and informative. Who could ask for more? And funny. Oh.
Well, hope it's been an interesting mix of stuff today. So your song
great today. It's really good. The comedians were just so sharp.
Well, yeah.
Press ups.
Yeah, they're good. They're good, and I think it was good to hear their views on comedy as well, because I think I learnt a lot from that, especially about the lack of representation of working class comedians, especially in the telly industry. You know, maybe on the circuit there's more working class comedians, but not actually where telly's concerned. Now, your song today is called "Cream of the Nation." And it's a reworking of the song you did before.
Yeah, because I thought the theme was comedy. I tried and do one of my rare comedy songs. So it's a song I wrote in the good old days of the coalition, when we had Liberal Dem people like Clegg, Ask Your Granny, and so I just updated it. I was interested looking at it that there are people who were infamous characters who are now no more, and there are still people who are unfortunately still with us, clogging up the toilets of society even today.
Oh, right. I like your way of describing people. Right, I'll play a song, then I'll come back to you. So here's Rob's song, "Cream of the Nation."
Turned out nice again. It's the Tory party conference and they're up on their hind legs. They're up on their hind legs, oh they're up on their hind legs. Hip hip says Mr. Murdoch, hip hip says Master Clegg, hip hip says Master Clegg, hip hip says Master Clegg, and it's all eyes right. It's the cream of the nation, thick, rich, white. All eyes right. It's the cream of the nation, thick, rich, white. Now up jumps Boris Bunter and he says, we need more laws, he says. We need more laws, he says. We need more laws. Laws protecting tuck shops and laws to keep the poor. More laws to keep the poor. We need more laws to keep the poor. And it's all eyes right. It's the cream of the nation, thick, rich, white. All eyes right. It's the cream of the nation, thick, rich, white. Now up comes Ozzy Osbourne and he's clearly paranoid. Oh, he's clearly paranoid. Oh, he's clearly paranoid. Cock up at the tuck shop, sack the unemployed. Sack the unemployed. We'll have to sack the unemployed. Ooh, eyes right. It's the cream of the nation and they're thick, rich, white. All eyes right. It's the cream of the nation, thick, rich, white. Now up comes Dave the head boy, he's worth a bob or two. He's worth a bob or two, oh yes, he's worth a bob or two. Of course he's never had a proper job and soon you won't have one too. Soon you won't have one too, soon you won't have one too. And it's all eyes right. It's the cream of the nation, thick, rich, white. All eyes right. It's the cream of the nation, thick, rich, white. And now it's 10 years later. Austerity's been and gone. Teresa's been and gone. And Brexit's been and gone. Only Gove and Bodger Bunter somehow carry on. And what a carry on! And they sing the old school song. All eyes right. It's the cream of the nation, thick, rich, white. All eyes right. It's the cream of the nation, thick, rich, white. The cream of the nation, thick, rich, white. The cream of the nation, thick, rich, white.
That's a great. I didn't know you could play all other instruments as well. You've got a lot. I mean, have you done that lots? That's the what is that instrument? That's the banjo.
Banjolele. That's your actual George Form banjolele. That is
banjolele.
Banjolele, yeah.
I thought it was a banjo. Oh, it's a small banjo then.
Yes, it's like a small banjo. It's like a ukulele, only it's got a banjo drum to it, so it's even louder than the usual ukulele. And yeah, it was George.
Have you played it for long?
I got it to do Ordinary Giants songs, so I've been playing it for a couple of years. It has a limited sound. Basically, that's what it does. It goes chingy 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 chingy. So you can't necessarily do anything too sensitive with it. But for chingy 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 George Formby, cheery chappy stuff, it's just perfect.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny sound at the back. So the Tories are still ruling the roost, aren't they?
Yeah, there are some turds that will not flush.
We'll get rid of them. We'll get rid of them.
Yeah.
We'll get the plumbers in. So thank you again for a great song and every show you come up with the goods. Now we're going to end the show as we always do with unmuting everyone, so you can all say hello to each other. Rob, you keep doing the Internationale when I do this.
I won't.
I've noticed you're overdoing the "Oh Jeremy Corbyn, oh Jeremy Corbyn, oh Diane Abbott" was coming in last time. And even then you were doing a bit of Internationale, I noticed. So let's see what emerges from unmuting everyone. I'm going to do it and leave it for half a minute and let's see who comes out of this. Rob, it's going to be Internationale, isn't it? All right. Unmuted, everyone.
Crispin is amazing on a Saturday afternoon. We're all in lockdown and I hope I'll see you soon. We are now singing a record tune.
Say something.
And we love you, Crispin, yes we do.
Yay!
Hi everyone, I love these Saturday afternoons and the Wednesdays, Refugee Week. And remember, refugees are really suffering now, so let's all be solid for them, do as much as we can. Woo! Hello, Barry. Oh, where's Barry gone? Hi, Barry.
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, everyone.
Is Jerry still there?
Thanks, Pamela.
That's okay. Bye.
Have a great day. I'm gonna make it quick.
Hi, everybody.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives
Black Lives Matter.
Matter. Yay!
Say it loud. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Lives Matter.
Lives Matter.
Lives Matter.
Solidarity.
Always.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you,
Crispin.
Crispin.
Welcome,
It was nice
Crispin.
again.
Oh, thanks, Suzy.
Yay. Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Well done, quiz people.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Who were those Tories? Let's get rid of them.
Yeah.
Yes, he started from you.
Oh, he started again. Started again.